Welcome to the Echo Oscar Delta podcast, where we talk to Navy EOD techs and hear the stories that they want to share. All ideas, thoughts, and statements are those of the guest and the host of Echo Oscar Delta, and not of Navy EOD or Navy as a whole. All right, today we have David Lyman, and I did 23 years in the Navy. Had a little break in service where he spent some time in the reserves and then came back in. I guess it wasn't really a break in service, was it? He kind of just got out of the reserves and then hopped back in.
Yeah, they have a funny way of doing math, like the government kind of always does. And so, it was like 10 months, but it doesn't count as 10 months. It was like just the sections,
Yeah.
Which I guess fair enough. But sometimes I'm like, really? That seems complicated more than it needed to be.
Right. But did Navy EOD for a good portion. And so I actually came across you. I was on the Instagram looking at the EOD Warrior Foundation page, and I noticed some crazy dude is trying to run a marathon in a Bombsuit. So, man, where'd that start?
I think I had heard about, there's been a number of folks who have tried to run or have ran a mile in the suit. There was an Army captain. There's been some Brits. There's been so many people. I just posted about a SEAL who did it, Sean Matson, which I especially appreciate. Because I kind of nerd out on EOD history, and I didn't, I know about our background and our connection with the SEALs, but I always kind of wonder, other than the obvious connection of us deploying with them, but we share the same father, and I always kind of wonder how much is known between the communities about Draper. I just assume a lot, but maybe people aren't as interested in the history or maybe have the time or bandwidth to think about that stuff. So I really appreciated seeing him in a suit. And even though he got injured, I think he said twice, due to training, and then the race day wasn't just him getting to focus on setting the new record, but he had to race other people. And that changes the dynamic a little bit. He still beat them, but as Sean would say, he didn't run his race. But I think as I've always been a runner, and as I kind of came up in the community, I became kind of curious what I could do just physically on my own, and started running ultras, getting into ultra distances, just running normally. And then I wanted to start trying to contribute. I saw what EOD Warrior Foundation was doing kind of early on. There's kind of a wacky story. If I can jump into it.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's wacky and sort of on my side of it, and it's extremely unfortunate on the other. A friend of mine, Matt Walther, was training back when we used to do the EOD Warrior ride. Not used to, but many, many, many years ago. I think, I want to say 2014. So Matt was training for it, and back then you pledged a certain amount of money, you'd fundraise, and then you'd actively fundraise. I'm sure you remember that. And about a week before the ride, Chad was killed in action in Afghanistan, and Matt had to go over there to fill in a team role. And so Matt calls me and he says, "Hey, I've already done all of this fundraising. I've done all of this work, but I got to go I got to go right now. Can you just take my place?" And I have never been on a street bike. I have never had to clip in or unclip, as that might be the more important part. And I've certainly never ridden 160 miles in a weekend on a bicycle of any sort. And I was like, "Yeah, of course, man. Yeah, deal with what you've got to go deal with," and I've got it. And so I cycled. I go over to his house. I grab his bike because I didn't have one. I grab his shoes because fortunately we were the same size. So I went for a 10-mile bike ride with with a friend of mine, Chelsea Mandeville, Jason Knoll's wife. And then, let's see, 2 days later, Thursday, I just watched a movie behind my couch on the bike, just practicing clipping in like for 2 hours, just like, okay, how do I, because I'm kind of slow and it takes, a long time for things to really settle in. So get it all figured out enough. And then Friday we go up, you go up Friday and you kind of get settled in and you ride. And I had, uh, the person who I roomed with, um, he snores like a freight train. So I got zero sleep. I was so tired. And I just like, hey, Dell, wake up. And he'd shift a little bit and stop snoring. And then he'd start snoring. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. Like if this wasn't for such a good reason, I don't know that it would be worth doing. Because it was just such a miserable setup. And then I got to ride with, I rode with my friend Chelsea. It was Chelsea, me, and John Kramer. And I think I will go to my deathbed, like remembering that ride. Like, uh, what an experience! Like, I mean, we survived. I didn't fall off my bike at all. I was able to unclip every time I needed to. Um, I'm pretty sure I was the last person to get across the line. But it was an experience, and like getting to see like so many people come together. You could say things like it was inspiring and motivating, but really I just like appreciated that the community like genuinely seemed to care about the community, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And so that kind of kick-started it, and so I wanted to start doing stuff like to contribute. And so the first thing I did, when we were in Djibouti, my second EOD deployment, we were in Djibouti, and I don't know why they did it, but I was able to con some of my platoon into running with me. So then in 2011, three of it, I think we had 4 suits. So three of us ran in EOD suits, bomb suits, um, and and then our OIC ran in his kit, and we ran a 5K, and we got the whole camp, like the entirety of Camp Lemonnier, like ran with us. The Marines came out, of course, in like kit and gas masks, because they're insane. I thought what I was doing, but at least I could breathe, like so they're in
Right.
gas masks. Um, but the whole camp like supported it, and then everything went, we donated money to EOD Warrior Foundation. And then that kind of started it. Like, and then, a couple, like 2 years later, there was an army tech who had lost his legs, Chaz Allen, and they were, if I recall, they were trying to like remodel the home to be more like wheelchair accommodating. So they were just raising money. I was like, oh, I can raise some. Maybe I can help. So we started working with bullets to bandages, um, and they were. I mean, I'm gonna use the word gracious and like appreciate probably a ton because like almost every time I've asked for support, I've heard yes. I don't know that I can think of a time where I specifically was told no, we can't do it. It was like, maybe we're not sure, maybe we're not like it's the first time or something like that. But so of course they have merchandise, so they help start merchandising my fundraising efforts. So we fundraised for Chaz. I ran a 5K in Imperial Beach. Um, and that was the second time. And so it sort of developed from there. So as I'm running and like, man, that suit, have you ever ran in it? It
Not anything of substance.
not on purpose, not on purpose. Yeah, I mean, it's just like you think. It's miserable, and it has nothing really to do with the weight. Like the weight isn't great, but it's not terrible. But it gets so hot. Like
Yeah.
anybody that's put it on knows um, how hot you get. But I feel like, man, like it is a furnace in your chest, kind of hot.
Hmm.
And I'm excited to actually get one and use it for training, but put a oven thermometer in it just to see what it gets to on the inside because maybe I'm just being dramatic, but it feels like it's hotter than it should be, you know. So that
No, that'd be interesting.
yeah, just see what I don't know. Try to make it funny, right? Like this is how miserable this guy is. What an idiot. Um, and that kind of, and so it kind of kept going. And then a couple years later, I ran a really small nonprofit called Team Overwatch, where we were just fully merchandised, trying with 100% of the proceeds of every sale going to EOD Warrior Foundation. Um, at one point, we did stop donating to them in an effort to help out. We were kind of partnered with Gary Sinise Foundation,
Okay.
supporting an Army family who, kind of the same as Chaz, they were moving into a new home, and so we raised, I think, man, like $16,000 for them, um, because we contributed. I think we ended up basically paving their driveway was like our contribution, something along those lines. Um, an army guy had been hurt, and the family needed help, and like good enough, if I could help in some way, like I should, that's kind of how I've approached it. Like if I have the ability to do something, then I'm sort of obligated to do it. I ran a Ragnar relay in the suit, so 15K in it. And then I took a couple years off from running. I had a really gnarly race. I got a heat injury that kind of knocked me flat. And then my last 4 years in the Navy were challenging. So I kind of ended up taking a big break, and then I retired. And now, fast forward to now, in January, I think I needed something a bit more to focus on. I work a lot. And then kind of to the amount or to the extent that like I didn't make up room for a lot else. Um, so I needed something to kind of refocus like in my personal life. And I was like, well, I don't know if anybody's done a marathon in a bomb suit. Turns out a Brit has. And I'm trying to get a hold of him, but I'm going to talk a lot of smack.
Oh, really?
Get the rivalry going. Yeah, his name is
Yeah.
Ian Church, an officer or major uh, in the Royal Navy. So hopefully I get a chance to talk to him. I've reached out to some friends that think they can get it to happen. Um, yeah. So, but like that got me running again. They got me training. It's got me pretty fired up. I haven't done a fundraiser for EOD Warrior Foundation in a long time, and it seemed like a great reason, a great motivator to get me back into doing stuff I love.
Yeah. That's awesome. You mentioned that not having enough or not having much time for anything other than work, and finding or like looking for something to focus on outside of work. And I'm glad you brought that up because that's something that's kind of come up in a bunch of different podcasts lately when I talk to guys. Is one of the general themes is like no matter what it is, but the Navy job or when you get out, whatever it is, when you spend so much time doing your work thing and you don't have some type of release outside, it just it gets heavy. It almost starts that spiral of like, what am I doing? Even if you like your job, because it's
Yeah.
just all of it is focused on thinking about that. So that's uncommon to decide that doing a marathon in the bomb suit is going to be your release. But
That's gonna be my downtime.
yeah,
And I think like my first team is a really good example of how like the community, how it's easy to find family in the community itself, right? Like we, I mean, we used to spend uh, so much, we'd work all day, you train, gear prep, whatever it is. We get that done. But I remember, and I'm sure, I'm sure there's every tech remembers doing this or still does it. Um, we'd open beers after hours, and then you know Matt Murray and I would race robots.
yeah,
Um, Adam Coleman he'd be attaching Velcro to scuba tanks, uh, so that we could try to come up with different ways to do limpet attack, right? Like easier, quicker, more accessible ways. Like how can we make things better? Um, my team leader was always showing me, Ray was always showing me different like ways to organize, like how to organize my kit. I got to work with, my first team up at 11, like R&T was like Bob Zimmerman, Brian Leighton, like, Jared Dinez, like Scott, like I was coming up and I remember just like, oh my God, these guys, like super nerdy about like who these guys were. And like, I mean, I didn't really know anything, I didn't know them specifically, just like, whoa, these guys have been doing it for a long time, and especially getting to Mobile Unit 11, tail end of 2006, 7, something like that. Like my memory's, you know, but like that was a rough time for 11 as well. So like the unit itself was uh, I would say maybe grieving and also like um, hyper focused. Like it was not going to happen again. If they could help it, kind of thing. So like the training was aggressive, but like you spent your time with your family. Like you were basically there. Like you'd work all day and then you'd hang out with the guys who you also worked with all day.
Yeah.
And that was okay. And I think that's a good thing. But I think as time goes on, um, maybe other stuff starts to slide. Like you aren't spending time, at home. It was maybe as much or whatever. And just like as years go, I guess what I'm getting at is like uh, when you don't have that anymore, now there's a big void. And you're like, well, what do I do with that? You
Yeah,
know?
no, I I agree. I think at the beginning it's actually great. I think it's great for you personally because you bond with the guys you
Yeah.
are going to work with and go do something that's inherently dangerous with. Um, it's great because EOD turns out is there's not just one or two things we have to know. Like it's
Yeah.
everything it seems like.
God. Yes. You just say yes to everything. Yeah. Every mission
Yeah.
area. Yeah.
And so like getting spending that much time gives you the time to like dive into
Yeah.
all the mission areas and all the things we're supposed to be responsible for and then all the extra things that we probably think we're supposed to be responsible for, people they're not actually our part of our job but other people think they
Yeah.
are, so then we just take it on like you just
Yeah.
said.
Like
Just say
in logistics, right? Admin and logistics, and
yep.
yeah, that's the best way to put it, really. Like, I think that's exactly right. Like, and it is the best way to do it for a new guy or
Yeah,
a young tech. Um, I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't mean others don't. Like, how to migrate as you get older and like
yes,
switch that back, or at least finesse it and balance it better. I
yeah.
wasn't good at that. I kind of expected things to stay the same, and I think now I'm like, oh, that was naive. Like, why would they do that?
Yeah, I agree that the hard part is figuring out because you're living it, right? It's like when you're trying to either get bigger or get smaller, depending on which way you want to go.
Yeah,
If you look in the mirror every day, you don't really see the change, but you wait a month, you wait a year, you can actually see the change if you're consistent. I I think it's like that. You're living this life of like 100% into work, and uh, eventually you realize 5 years ago is when you should have started that transition, but
yeah,
it's already been 5 years. That's kind of what happened with me. And for me, it was yeah, I didn't have a family at the start. Um, I got married, nothing really changed. I had a kid. I told myself things were going to change. They didn't. Um, and then I had
yeah,
two kids, and then I was like, oh man, it would have been nice if I would have started this slow transition because yeah, it's tough. And I think having that thing outside, it forces you to not think about just the work side
yeah,
100% of the time.
yeah. And I think that's kind of like a side appeal to it, like for my efforts. And like I think I was just telling my partner, I'm like, it's kind of selfish, like this endeavor isn't maybe as altruistic as it, first seems, because like some of it does benefit me, right? I I'm likely just to like go to work and work as much as I possibly can, and like unless I have my kiddos, I'm working. So like this is like, okay, now I'm building in more days off, including rest days. I'm being somewhat more social, like I'm visiting friends and I'm doing things other than just working. Um, and so I think it's beneficial to me. It's like not just the mental health piece, but like physically too, right? Going and doing things other than just grinding. Um, and I don't think I really figured that out until after I retired. I just kind of kept beating my head, especially my last 4 years. I just kept beating my head against the wall. I didn't get that, and that, that's a piece of what I was going through, but like I didn't understand like how to, like what I needed, and then how badly that was going to then impact, even my work life, right? Because like how can it not? Um, so now like I'm still kind of trying to figure it out, but I think at least I'm aware of it. And I'm curious if that's a thing, like a lot of techs, especially that have retired, if that's something they go through. I kind of suspect. How do you go from something so um, encompassing to like now you can do whatever you'd like,
Yeah.
and like how do guys, we all, I think most of the guys, I don't love LinkedIn, but I see them and they all seem like they found jobs. It seems like a good thing. I'm proud of them. Uh, I'm always curious if it's like satisfying, fulfilling, or like how are they finding that now? Because back in the day, like driving the robot, or tweaking the gear with the guys, that was satisfying. That was fulfilling, and then when that's gone, then what?
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The whole thing about, like, oh, I can't wait until I retire and could do whatever I want. And then you hear a lot of times like, I don't know what I want.
Yeah. I grew a beard, like I think all of us do. And then I was like, okay. All
Yeah. Now
right, I
what?
did that. Can I come back in? Can I re-enlist? Is that a so
Yeah.
um yeah, yeah, I get it. I'm always curious about our community in that regard. Uh, I should have asked more questions of our leadership. Like, hey, what do I do? What do I
I
do
know,
now?
right? Well, that's actually funny because someone made this comment, and it was just after they retired, and they're like, what a mobile unit needs, what every command needs is like to hire somebody who just retired for like a year and a half at a stint, right? Because the worst person to ask on how to retire and what to retire is an active duty person because they don't know. They didn't go through it.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
best person to ask is somebody who just recently went through it and missed all these opportunities that they didn't know until after. And now they're like trying to figure out how to get them back. I
yeah,
was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
man,
That's a really good point.
if only we could actually do that. But is it Todd Neal actually just wrote a book and got it published,
Nice.
like specifically talking about challenges and things related to separating from the military and retiring because of exactly what we're talking about, because nobody knows
Yeah,
until it's too late.
and some of it's just nuance, right? Like I feel like, man, you get fire hosed with retirement information, but like none of it really is um like where your headspace is going to be like what
Right.
it's going to feel like. And man, that's I bet Todd's book is great. I have heard some stories. He is a crazy man, in the best possible way. I
Right.
cannot believe what I've met him a couple times, but I think since I last met him, it's kind of when I heard some stories, and boy, I want to buy him beer and just be like, is this you don't even need to recount it. Just is that true? Just
Right.
to see what he says. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's great. I think something like that, especially from a guy that's been around for a while and knows what he's about. I think that would carry a lot of weight uh,
Yeah.
for guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Diving back in a little bit, we got on a little bit of a of
Sorry,
a
I
left
just
path
like
there.
you
No,
pull the string and I just
I know. That's how we all are. Like we're like,
yeah,
I wonder, and then we just
yep,
keep going. Um, yeah. Let's see. So one of the things that I think you talked about the weight of the bomb suit not really being as much of a problem, but one of the things that always, I've always noticed is anytime you're trying to move quick in the bomb suit, I mean, those legs are not the most like you don't have a lot of stride length to them. Uh, how is I thinking back? Okay, uh, I can imagine it being like when you're going through something like Chief season or even in EOD school and you're
Mhm.
doing all those formation runs at not
Yeah.
your favorite pace. I can
Yeah.
imagine the hips and all that just not feeling the perfect after a bomb suit run. How is that?
Um, so the biggest issue I've faced running in the suit, uh, probably other than the heat, is the friction on my knees. And actually,
Mm.
I have scars where it's rubbed holes in my knees, and I can like point to them. It's like it's gross,
Jeez.
So. And I remember running the Ragnar, which was, it's a Ragnar relay down in San Diego called Los Coyotes. So it's the trail one. Like if you're familiar with Ragnars, there's a road one, which is like point to point, and then there's a trail, so it's just loops. And I had ran the first two loops, you know, like 4 hours. I think there's 4 hours in between. But by then my knees were pretty, like the tops of my knees get pretty shredded just because it doesn't move a lot. And I borrowed uh, my girlfriend at the time. I borrowed her leggings. So I'm really adorable, I'm sure. And like they don't fit, but like they covered my knees, and it was like night and day. Like so that'll be something I do, obviously for the marathon now. And so I haven't had the same issue with like actual movement, like my stride. I've got a coach, and our tactic will be I have to run with a metronome now, and so we're shortening my I train with my stride um, being shortened. So I think my cadence is like 150, something like that. So it's a pretty short stride, um, which I think will work out well for the suit. But the downside is like we are looking at uh, 12 to 14 minute mile. If I can do 14 minutes or lower, I'll beat the previous record for sure.
Okay.
So like that's kind of the goal is like do 14, try to buffer. I think his time was like I think it was like 420 was like his average pace, assuming. I don't know how much he stopped or any of that. So I'm assuming he didn't stop. I'm assuming he maintained 1420 the whole time and didn't wasn't going faster and didn't have an issue or something like that. Um, and then hopefully I can create a buffer and or go faster. Um, but yeah, the knees. Once I kind of figured out how to protect them, and it's tricky because like you don't want to. You can get the legs pretty tight, with that Velcro, um, as long as the Velcro is not super old. So we'll see when I get. I'm trying to get one right now. It's a real challenge to get a suit when you're not active duty. When you're active, it's just like here's four
Yeah.
of them. They just like falling bomb suits everywhere that nobody uses, right? But not being active has made it tough. So my goal will be to make sure I can get those legs nice and snug. But what's funny is like that's I kind of like, oh, that'll be the easy part is really because the weight's not. It'll be rough on my knees, of course, and then the rubbing has been solved, so the heat is kind of the thing. Um, and so like we first time in my life, and anybody that's met me or is probably looking at me will be like, oh, he's a runner, he's not a lifter. And so I am having to like day one go learn how to do like a proper deadlift and how to do gorilla rows. I'm like, he's like, oh, we're gonna do gorilla rows next. I'm like, I don't know what that is, like, and I'm like super self conscious about it because it's like what a but whatever. Like I'm learning now, and so my goal is just to get stronger. I think the stride will be okay. I think the stride will be okay.
Yeah, I was wondering about the strength and the leg side because I was a runner pretty much my whole life, and like things like um, rucks and stuff, those
Hmm.
always like I wasn't the best at rucks just because I was used to carrying my body weight, not an extra 50 or 60 pounds or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, so that like that got my hips and everything. But I guess in one sense, the bomb suit is spreading all that weight, but on another, like it's still all that weight.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's spreading it straight down. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
yeah. How's or what's the main uh, I guess thing that your coach is trying to strengthen on you? Is it legs? Is it back? Is it like, or is it just
Man.
all of it?
Um, I think our honestly, I don't think it's any of it. I think our focus is resiliency.
Okay.
Um, like I feel like a pretty competent runner uh until I talk to some coaches, and then we've got, and I'll post some videos and like a lot of their commentary, including the embarrassing weight stuff, because I want to try to like really document the whole thing, the whole process. But how do you get comfortable um, wearing that? And I mean, like I mean, ask any tech, like their kit weighs, assuming they have at least the front and back plates, what, 40 pounds? Like ish. If they've got the side plates, the sappies, I think, like that's what, another 15, 20. Like, and that's just the plates, not to mention their gear or their weapons or their pants, because their pants are gonna be full of battery. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
they always have just so much. So I think I've got um I'm lucky in that I had a career that sort of indoctrinates you and gets you used to carrying that weight. Um, Anybody that puts on their kit, it usually settles into the right, comfortably pretty quickly. So I think the goal here for us is like, um, how do I do it for however long I need to do it? And so our goal is like, that's why strength is a big piece, is just um, get, I just need to be like a really well-rounded athlete. That's kind of our goal, is really dial in nutrition. Um, I think what we were laughing about, like the one thing we really want to get big are my calves. They're like, other than that, you're okay, but we really need to get your calves big because like that'll be the best for shock. And I'm like, my calves, and they're like, yes, okay. So like everything I do, I'm also doing a bunch of calf work. Um, yeah, including stretching, which is just not anybody's favorite thing, I think. But stretching is just, yeah. So Um, and in dialing in nutrition, we were joking about it. There's a runner I follow, Claire Gallagher, and they talk a lot about how like she had her nutrition for a 100-mile attempt, and it was protein shake and cake frosting. Just that was it.
Yeah.
That's what she ate. You're like, I that sounds awful. Like just so disgusting. But then in my mind, I'm also like, well, pickle juice. Like I love pickle juice. It's so good. So like maybe pickle juice and like protein powder, and like how can I figure out what I'll actually be able to onboard um while running. I'm gonna have a partner running with me, like my pacer. Um, and he's going to be on course with me as support, and then our partners are going to be off course, sort of running supplies to us, because I don't quite know what that looks like. I don't know how much they're going to need to have um, or want, and that's kind of why I'm hoping I get in touch with Ian um, at some point, because it'd be great to cheat if I can
Yeah.
if I can
Yeah.
find out what he did, like what worked, what didn't work, right? Like, and I joke and I say cheat, and I'm like, maybe I don't want to say that word, but like, I think if we can learn from each other, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And honestly, yeah, it's so sorry.
Hmm.
I'm like, I'm always
No,
thinking of a bunch of
please.
things. You, I saw a post because you applied for getting the Guinness Book of World Record.
Hmm.
for it, right?
Yep.
And so he has that right now, right?
He is the current holder. And as far as I can tell, there's the one. So I think he's the first
Okay.
person to do it. I
Yeah.
know Mark Gibbs, another Brit. I haven't been able to get a hold of them. And unfortunately, anytime I try to search up his name, the only person I get is the like the grumpy cop from NCIS because his character name
Yeah.
is Mark Gibbs. And I'm like, that's not who I'm looking for. Like,
Yeah.
but everything is just him. I'm like, maybe that is him. Maybe I'm just way off. But like,
That's funny.
um, but I think he did a half marathon. And then I think I saw somewhere I read that he might have trained for a full, but never did it.
Okay.
Or maybe he didn't do a Guinness. I can't find a record of it, so
Yeah.
I'm trying to find it because I want to make sure I'm doing my due diligence. But as far as marathons go, it's Ian. Uh, and he like depending on when he did it, he's got the benefit of British weather.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
so I'm hoping like the course I'm running is the Orange County Marathon in May. So my hope is we usually have a pretty healthy marine layer. The race starts at 5:30 a.m. I'm gonna be very front. The Orange County Marathon, like I can't say enough. Like when I messaged them, um, they were immediately on board. A gentleman named
That's nice.
Gary, one of the race directors, he replied back uh, with I think he was saying his niece is married to an EOD tech,
Oh, wow.
uh, something like. My memory isn't great, and I always have to like have a lot of reference up, so I apologize. I can get you details. Um, so it was just like immediately like yes, like yeah, I'll help, like we'll help. And then my main contact there, Kelsey, who's been sort of interfacing with EOD Warrior Foundation's Mackenzie Carlson, like just how can we help? How can we make this successful? What can we do? So like yeah, we'll put you front and center. Let us get our podcast or our social media folks in touch with you and like get you up front. So I think that's all great, but it's also just really nice. I won't have to navigate people. I don't think I'll be passing a lot, but at least I won't be in the back.
Yeah.
you know, I'm going to be getting passed all day long. But
Yeah, which I don't know, having people around the entire time is that'll keep you like
yeah,
engaged moving forward as
yeah.
opposed to if they're like if there does become a separation or like
And
yeah,
you're
it
the
just
only one on the course.
yeah.
yeah,
Like no.
that's
Um
tough, man. Yeah.
but I was thinking or we were talking about trying to get a hold of the previous record holder, and this is one of those scenarios too, like especially it's so uh niche that
Yeah.
having like I can imagine that when you get this record, right? And 10, 15 years somebody hits you up and is like, "Hey, I heard you did this thing. I'm trying to do it." You'll be pumped. Like it's not that like, "Hey, I
Yeah.
want to keep this record forever." It's, "Oh yeah, dude, this is going to be terrible. You're going to love it afterwards." Like,
I
"Here,
mean,
let me tell you."
that would also be cool. But
Right,
yeah,
right.
100%. Like there are by far stronger and faster and smarter. And that's kind of my mantra when I'm running is like, uh, there's always somebody stronger, smarter, and faster.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think like reaching out to these guys and um, just having that community, right? Like there's bonding
Yeah.
and suffering, right?
Yep.
Like every time you've gone to
Absolutely.
train, like, or you're at a FEP and you're exhausted and you hop in the truck and somebody says something that makes you laugh, like that's the best. There's nothing better than that, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so my hope is like, if I can, if I can do it, when I do it, and then can, can create, can have a fun story to tell, but then also sort of like inspire guys
Right.
like to keep to beat my record, to do something weirder. Like
Yeah.
I convinced a bunch of UD techs a number of years ago to swim like a mile in the ocean towing kegs of beer. Like
That's awesome.
I yeah, like Alejandro Loya and Bree Koger like
Yeah.
swam an ocean mile with me, like off the Coronado Dell, and then we stopped at the Dell, came out of the water, and we drank beer all afternoon. Like, uh,
That's
like I
awesome.
want whether it's like a bomb suit marathon or a mile or something else. I think I would love if I was to have a legacy would be like that. People want to keep kind of contributing to the community, not just to like uh, the RSPs and the doctrine, which is incredible in its own. I mean, like incredible in its own way how we do things, but like really keep fostering community. I think that's something I kind of worry about. Um, I don't know if that's a thing that anybody else feels or is concerned about. Maybe, and that's probably just some of my own stuff that comes out. But like and I'm not saying this is something that's actually happening in the community, but I worry about the loss of community. Especially in something so tight knit. Um, Especially given our history, which is why I do posts on Draper Kaufman, why I talk about Sean Matson, or um, anybody that's done anything like this, like because it's not just about that person; it's they're doing something because maybe he wants to beat the record, but like he could go beat it quietly on his own if he
Right.
wanted to. He wants people to like let's get involved, let's have some fun, let's do stuff together, right? So I think that's something I would love to see. And if somebody wants to beat it, please let me train with you. Please let me help you. Let's get there. That sounds awesome to me. And then maybe I'll try to fight back, right?
Right. Exactly.
Like that sounds awesome too, right? Like and then that inspires like I mean all of the good competitions
Yep.
uh you know that's where it comes from. Like if you've ever watched like CrossFit Games or the Olympics, none of them are mad at each other at the end.
Right.
They're all like
Exactly.
huge smiles, like exhausted, throwing up, just a mess, and they're happy. Like
Yeah.
if I can contribute to that in some way, God, please let me.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. So that's why, and then I get pretty passionate, and I probably drive EOD Warrior Foundation staff nuts because I'm pretty. Those poor guys, like Mackenzie and JT Crocker, like patience of saints, because I'm constantly like, hey, like trying to like, find something, just to get like that visibility and keep that community going. And that's also why I picked them. Like, there's so many foundations and there's so many things you can um, donate to. I mean, there's literally millions of charities. So it's like you know,
Yeah.
but it's my community. You know,
Right.
so
No, uh, the community thing is, you know, I'm gonna say this, and it is a negative. It doesn't mean it, not meaning it to be a downer, but I I do what I have noticed is the active EOD community. It is going through a downturn right now, and why why I don't want that to necessarily be like it's a negative statement. I think it's to be expected. We had something for 20 years that everybody was so focused on, right? Like
yeah,
doing the wars, potentially losing people, guys getting hurt. And we saw that like literally every month, something was happening,
yeah,
whether it was catastrophic or not. And it was something for everybody to rally around. And we did that. And now it's
yeah,
slowed down. And I think it's just a natural byproduct that like people are slowly going like kind of becoming a recluse from the community, even in the active duty side. But it's good hearing, like you, and then seeing like EOD Warrior Foundation, INSOF, um, the Navy uh, the Navy EOD Association. I
hmm
think they all are seeing this and they're pushing out to try and say, hey, like we get the active duty side, let's on the after work side, let's all get together, and you don't have to talk about EOD. Spoiler, we probably will, but um,
It's the fun parts. It's the fun
yeah,
parts.
exactly.
No,
But
no DTS, but maybe
yeah,
like we can talk about. Yeah, don't bring that up. Don't.
yeah,
That's not welcome. Yeah,
yeah. But yeah,
yeah,
it is. It's funny as I spend more and more time in the community, right? Like, you know, thinking I would never get to 18 years, and now that
yeah,
I'm at 18 years, the longer I'm in, the more I do enjoy meeting people I don't know that are in the community, even if we're not talking about necessarily EOD things, but like this, you know,
yeah,
we talked a little bit about EOD things, but it's the fact that like people in these communities, the people that are drawn to these communities are the same people that are drawn to doing crazy stuff completely separate from
yeah,
the job. And
yeah.
that's fun. Just sitting down and chatting and building that community and the friendships and the relationships and yeah, just having a good time chatting.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. Especially like I always kind of wondered if it's just because we're not at war. Uh, and maybe that's like a naive thing to say, or even like, yeah, duh, of course it's not, right? Like, um, I guess I hoped or expected like it wouldn't change just because we're not. But that's probably kind of a nonsensical way of thinking. Like, of course things are going to change. Like the pressure's not there. And absolutely right. I think what you said about, I mean, there was catastrophe. There was a lot. Like, uh, there was a lot, and like some of the losses that we had or the injuries that we had, like I can't fathom those, like what those families went through or go through still, right? I mean, it doesn't go away. It doesn't stop for them. Um, it, yeah, that was tough for me to understand, like if, like what was happening. And I was like, is it all just that? Like, it's just because like we're not at war anymore. I remember my last couple years were at Mobile Unit 3. And I remembered like, you walk around through the different shops and you always have, I feel like when I was younger in the community, like all the shops would be like fully decorated, like fully, you'd have just paraphernalia, swag, memories everywhere. Um, and this isn't a hit on 3 by any stretch. It was just interesting to me that like only like 2 of them had like a bar. And I know but like not, I don't mean like a bar necessarily for drinking, although, right? But
Yeah.
like a like a space where the team would sit and have drinks or share or had, you know, pictures of teammates or like there was a shadow box for, for JJ, like at one, and like the space around it was just full of memories, and I feel like I remember spaces being like that more often. Um, and I don't think it's like like, oh, it's these, the new guys, like maybe in a way because they came in, they can't control it. Like we're not at war when they came in. So maybe they haven't had a chance to flesh things out yet, or they're coming into it and they're like, oh, this is how things are. Okay. Perhaps, but man, I felt like maybe just because of a lack of that, I was always worried that maybe the community itself was just uh, spreading out from itself. Like, I think you used the right word, like reclusiveness. Um, work's done, you go home. Like you just peace out. Because it's work, not family as much as it used to be. I don't know if that's fair or accurate to say though. Like because that's just my experience. But
I do know that like Mobile Unit 5 and Mobile Unit 8, because you're so far away, they still like everybody that goes out there, um, it's the same. Like
it's
you're
awesome.
and I think part of it too is like you live in San Diego, right? Or you any one of the mobile units. If you're if somehow you're not pulling in millions of dollars a year, right? Which on a military salary is very unlikely. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're probably living a decent drive away, right? Or and if you're married, you're
Yeah.
probably living a decent drive away. So
Yeah.
it's hard to, and you got 8 guys on a team, you're going to be in 8 different directions, right? And so after hours, you're not going to drive an hour to your house and then an hour to somebody else's house. And like,
Yeah.
it's hard to expect that. But
Yep.
in Rhoda and in Guam, it's not that far. So it's easy to
Nice.
get
Yeah. That makes
families
sense.
together. And
Yeah.
so like, well, people are realizing, hey, I should focus on my family a little bit more now that I have the time. They can actually bring families together and do
You sort of
events
do
where it's,
both. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That's fair. I think like, and I think maybe I would hazard like as a function of the chief, like maybe that's something that helps too. Like
yeah,
on my second team, I mean, not to single out any other chiefs, but like our second team, we loved him, Justin Berlin. Um, and he made a big point of doing platoon stuff, but it was family. Like we were all there,
yeah.
and yeah, we coke and joke and talk about work, but it was also we also didn't.
Hmm.
And I think that's why like we all still talk to each other, maybe more than I do like my other teams. Um, like those guys, made that effort, being stateside. Yeah, and I think maybe calling the units in. I wonder if it was probably cheaper for the Navy, but I wonder if that contributed to it as well. Like consolidating the units, yeah, it makes sense in a sense, but like or in a way, uh, financially or whatever. But like um, with Guam and with eight being the way they are, maybe that kept that unit like cohesiveness. So interesting. I'm
Yeah.
sure somebody smarter than me has had that thought as well. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter. I wonder how that impacts like the units, and readiness and all that. But that's a I don't even want to say that word because I don't.
I know, right?
I'm like it's like right there with DTS. Like we're gonna put it over
Yeah.
here. And,
We're going to see this episode, and right at that time slot, everybody drops off.
yeah, 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 yeah. Like I'm
No, it's,
sorry I ruined your show. I'll see myself out. Like didn't
it,
mean to.
it's interesting to think about because yeah, I'll think about this every now and then. I try not to spend too much time on it, but I think about it because if if you do think about it, then you can be like, okay, well, what are some things that I can do to help it? But if you just never think about it, then
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of whatever. But let's see. Doing one thing I really wanted to ask, right? Cooling, right? You talked about having some heat issues before, but
Yeah.
what do you like? Just dropping, when you're just running, you can throw some water on you and it'll evaporate. I feel like that's not necessarily the best idea to throw a bunch of water down your suit to try and let it go.
Yeah.
What's,
I'm kicking around ideas. I think the easy thing would be just dump water, right? Um, it's funny because everywhere I go, I get different numbers for how much the suit weighs. So it'll be, and I have like, I've been pestering this poor guy at MedEng, Corey Mueller, who I say his name now because I really want to give the man credit for entertaining all of my nonsense. I was like, hey, can I get a spec sheet? Hey, can I get, because I want to see exactly what MedEng thinks that suit weighs. Uh, and then I want to soak it. I want to get really wet and see what that weighs. Because if I just dump water on myself, that might work. But if it adds 10 pounds or chafes, and then also my partner has to carry water, right? So right now, what we're thinking is, the visor will be up. I'll likely have some sort of ice pack. Um, if we can find one that will stay frozen long enough, that it makes sense. Like it's like because we don't want to have to carry a ton of them, and I don't want my like support team like with just that. Like they have other stuff to carry. I'm going to need to be eating like solid foods. I'm going to need water. So we're going to have a big old camelback attached on the back. So I'm drinking. But I think, yeah, cooling. I think the legs are probably okay. Even, wearing the leg piece isn't bad. Um, but the best way to get, I think if I can get some stuff on my neck, I think I'll be okay. And then just get good turnover on that. Um, and maybe there's like towels I've heard about that like stay really cold, so maybe have that on too. It's funny, and maybe you can tell me, I've never heard of anybody wearing that suit that comes with the bomb suit that like pipes cold water. And I think it's just like, for me, it's always like, well, if that stops working, now I'm wearing a whole new layer. So it's like, I don't want to wear it.
That
But like,
yeah,
I don't know.
that suit is great for a a a short end where you have a much bigger, when you have a big blue, right? You
Your
have
footprint.
a
Yeah.
box truck that you can get dressed up in it. You've got the ice set up. You put that in it. You're going down range for 5 to 10 minutes and coming back up.
Yeah. Because
But
what, X-ray? Dropping off some X-rays? Yeah.
exactly, yeah. Outside of that, that water is gonna turn hot within half an hour to max 45 minutes, and now you're
Yeah.
just circulating hot water through it. Like,
Yeah. That doesn't
yeah,
sound like that'll help.
no,
Yeah.
no, not at all. Plus,
Fear validated. All right.
yeah,
Perfect.
yeah, that I would not even, I've never even worn, like, I've worn it just to see what it would do, but I've never worn it on a drill, never worn it
No,
like ever, never heard
I've never even
anybody.
packed it out. It's always
Yeah,
stayed home. Yep.
exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
Uh,
We when I started this idea, I was like, and I will like, the first like 7 months of this year, I would deny this, but I was like, I'm just gonna run the suit, no helmet, and like, it's not smart. Like, I can justify not wearing the helmet, and I was really telling myself that because I really wanted to believe it, like that was like people would sign off on it, right? Like everybody else would agree with me. And then like as I started realizing how many people have done bomb suit miles and a half marathon, and then seeing Ian in a much lighter weight suit, just in case he sees it, I want to make sure he gets the dig. Um, like I have to wear the helmet. Like
yeah.
it doesn't count, you know. And honestly, like it goes back to like I have no excuse. Like I'm able to like I have to wear the helmet. And I was like, God, that's gonna be miserably hot. Like, but
Yes.
I think it's just, and I think like fluid, right? Like so we are watching, like we're monitoring. I have, I can't remember what they're called. They're like, you can get these patches from Gatorade. Uh, it's like a sweat patch. You
Okay.
stick it on your arm and then you can work out, run, whatever you do, and it will track basically what's in your sweat. So I'm going to be using those between now and May to see like what is happening the most. What am I losing the most of? Um, and then just how do I replace that while also onboarding, carbs and maybe some protein. Um, so it all kind of comes back to like a combination of resilience and nutrition. Like how can I just get my body as ready as possible to do that, and then and how can I onboard it? And we sort of acknowledge like at some point it's not going to matter. It's just going to come down to like, okay, now you just have to go. Like it doesn't matter what you're like, cheat, eat whatever you want, like whatever goes down, like cool, whatever you have to do to stay cool, whatever it takes at some point. So I think all my training is hopefully getting me to a point where, um, that's like buying me time. I do have a goal. We think it's a little lofty. I would like to do 4 hours, a 4 hour marathon, which is a 9 minute pace. I have no idea, you know. I, thankfully, I don't have to do a sub 4 hour marathon like
Yeah.
to beat the record. Like, thank God that pressure's not there. It's just an internal dialogue. Um, I can run without weight. I can run that. Um, so my hope is that like the training can get me close. Um, and I've got the vest. I've got a vest, thankfully. A friend of mine was suggesting get like those weight loss or like those weight loss suits, the guys use when they're like cutting. Put that on and then put on my kit. So it's like 60-pound kit and then go for a run. And I was like, that might not be bad. Or sauna training. They're talking about sauna training too. So
just getting yourself resilient to heat
yep,
under stress. Yeah.
yep. They said go, so I generally do my workout, just refocus on the marathon, I guess. Go do my workout and then go do my long runs, whatever, and then immediately go into a sauna, like 15 minutes, just even just 15 minutes of just my body in that environment post effort will probably do a lot of good, get me used to it. So that's the hope. So,
Yeah. That's, man, that's, on the surface, it's like, oh, Bombsuit marathon. That'll be tough because it's heavy, but there's actually a lot more that goes into
yeah,
it than that.
yeah, and the course. I'm lucky. The course is kind of curly. Um, it's like a backwards nine, sort of. Um, with like a little bit of a tail. And so that'll make it, I think, fairly easy for some of my crew to get supplies.
Mm.
Um, because they can kind of cut the course, riding bikes or whatever, cut over and get over to meet us every couple miles. So like I'm fortunate in that. Um, and again, like talking to Ian would be great to see what they did, but if you look at a lot of the ultra endurance runners today, like it's just about nutrition, and then if they can keep replacing what they're losing, I mean, they're also going so fast that they can get that ground covered. And so like, I mean, new records were just set in 100 miles in the last like 2 weeks, like 14
Whoa.
hours, 100 mile marathon in 14 hours. Like I'm not, holy cow. So, um, I have a lot of faith in just like that resiliency training and nutrition. So pickle juice and cake batter and yeah, maybe we'll see. It'll be weird. It's gonna be weird for sure.
That's it's a pretty awesome though, like thing to try and do because when you think about trying to raise money, right? It for somebody to really like the people that and then people that surrounding the community will be willing to donate because like, hey, it's for a good cause, right?
Yeah.
But for those that are 2 or 3 degrees separated, you got to do something that is like logistically or physically like that's that's almost not possible, like and and if you do that, then somebody that has no idea like what EOD is, who you are, what a foundation is, right? Then they're like, okay, and that sparks something that like, man, this guy's trying something crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let me figure out. Let me donate. And like, I think this is it. Like, yeah, there might have been 2 guys that did it before, but it's
Well, and I think that's the thing that I love too. Like, those guys have done it. Like people have tried it, you know. But like, OC Marathon, Kelsey over at Orange County Marathon, like they lean so fully into it, and they get I think like 15,000 runners every year, and it's growing. So like, there's going to be, I think that's what got me really excited. I reached out to Big Sur. This isn't a dig at them at all. I reached out to them, and I was like, hey, can I don't want any. This is what I'm doing. I'm not asking for any special treatment other than can I just start in the like first, basically because I want to finish before the cutoff. Like not even because I think what I'm doing is like, hey, look at me. I just need the time. I don't want to be in the
yeah,
very back just to get across the finish line or the starting line. In Big Sur, like, maybe they said no. Yeah, they were like, nope. And I think it's a blessing because they have like a 2 mile solid 2 mile uphill.
yeah, that's a
And I
tough
was like, that
course.
would have been awful. And OC is like net negative. I think we started like just under 300 feet sea level, above three sea level, and it ended at like 60. So I'm like, that
Nice.
downhill, like
Yeah.
all time, just all downhill, Kelsey emailed me like she's like, oh God, there are two hills. They're like 50 feet high each. She was super concerned, and I was like, I'm good. Like that's fine. Considering what I was thinking I was gonna have to run, like we're all right.
Right.
Um, but yeah, and I think like, if I'm running, I am sure I'll be engaging on some level with people and the crowd. The crowds are probably going to freak out, right? Like
Yeah.
if you've ever done any competition, right? Like doesn't have to just be running. Like the crowds are like just stoked to be there. And
Hmm.
anytime you see somebody doing something uh this sounds like self-congratulatory, but like incredible, like they're going to get hyped. So like
Yeah.
I'm excited because I think that will be a huge boost for me, just like that energy and like all the signage, all the people just being on board, and what an opportunity, right? Like to talk about who we are and what we do. Um, I think that's kind of what excites me the most. Like, we have we have a really Hollywood banger in the Hurt Locker, right? Like, and we have, and I'm somewhat sarcastic, like, you know, I don't know. It was a tough one to watch for me, but I'm sure, like, hey, as my girlfriend says, like, you got a movie finally, okay? Relax. Like, um, to share what we do, because like, I think I'm always just so amazed by our community that I want people to know more about us. Um, like not just because of what we do now, but because of what we have always done, and like how incredible some of these people are. Like how what they have figured out and what they've been able to do and honestly that includes like the seals like back in the day, like people know what seals or have a rough idea of like of who and what seals are. um I did until like you learn a little bit about the history and like, oh my God, like what what uh what a people, what an entity, like oh my God. Like not even uh our movies today don't do it justice, and so I think the opportunity to really highlight um our community, and not me highlighting it, but just like maybe hopefully like inspiring curiosity, and then people go and learn. And then with my Instagram, I'm not that social media guy, and I don't think good at fundraising. I'm proud of what I have done, uh, but I'm not like that um, eloquent, charismatic person that can really like sell something on an elevator. But I hope to like just highlight some of the cool stuff that people do and have done, and then generate that interest. And I think that's a big piece of it. And like if that works out, then that's super satisfying. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think this is all of that. Like doing
should.
this will definitely just putting myself in the shoes of in two different people's shoes. One, somebody's on the spectator side, at mile 10, mile 12, mile 15, right? And seeing this dude in a bomb suit running by, like the first thing I'm going to think is, did he just get out here?
Yeah,
And then
what's going
this,
on with this guy?
yeah. And then it's going to be like, why is he doing this? And just like you said, like if it's just to inspire that like curiosity, because that's going to happen many times, right? That like, why is this guy, and who who is he? But it's like that who is he is gonna foster like, well, what is he a part of, and like
Yeah,
100% that will then get people drawn into seeing what EOD is, and that's how you get people drawn into, okay, the EOD Warrior Foundation or whatever foundations that there are. And
yeah,
then
yeah,
that's where the support, so that those foundations get funded, so that the support goes back to the community that we love.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, like, uh, and amazing things are still occurring. Like, not just like the work that our guys do, but somebody I was just put in touch with recently. His name is Mike Vining, And like another one of those guys, right? Like he had an incredible military career. Um, he retired in '99, so right when I was joining the military. Which when he and I started talking, like that made him start laughing. Um, and he is still doing. He does a lot of history work, so he does a lot of history on just the EOD for like as a whole, and he does a lot of research on guys that have been killed and no record of them. Like one of the programs he was just telling me about that they do, and this is something that the EOD Warrior Foundation does uh, every year, is they put this like a flag and a disc on the grave of EOD techs, including Arlington, and they have a special disc for the one in Arlington that's like biodegradable. So like because Arlington has these rules, and there's families that didn't know that their grandfather was an EOD tech in World War II and now knows because of work that these foundations are doing. So like that's not something you do because you're like money hungry or like because you want visibility or recognition. Like hey, look at us, look what we're doing. Like
Right.
that's not a big banner being waved, right? That's not a bumper stick. I'm not, like that's just something they do because that's like almost the right thing to do. Like they are tracking down guys that have been lost, and even guys that weren't EOD techs. As he gets information about them, he makes sure like it gets logged so that if ever anybody else were to look for them, they there's information. So like, and it's not just World War II. It's Korea and Vietnam and currently. Um, and I just think that like that makes me proud that there's guys who are still doing that, and I'm nowhere near, you know, uh, like the JT Crockers or Mike Vinings of the community, or I mean any of the other, the Todd Neal. I don't rank on there with the Todds or any of that, but like I just think the community deserves is just so interesting in the past of who these guys are, the types of people that do that stuff are just so like interesting that like I just want to make sure that like people have the opportunity to learn about it and it doesn't get lost. I think the thing like if we often say like we die twice kind of thing, and that always kind of like sat with me, especially because I think the community is like that as well. Like I just want us to always talk about like that bond we have as well. And I think that's what kind of we keep kind of coming back to it a little bit, like how we work together and how we spend our time together, and not just for the work piece, but because like that bond. Um, that's always I think maybe obviously been the important part for me anyway. So
I love it. I was like, I've always been a runner. That's and I've always my motto at Mobile Unit 5 was was if I'm gonna do something, uh if I'm gonna do something that makes me suffer, I'm gonna suffer as much as I can. And like
yeah,
when I saw that, you're taking running and was like, oh, I'll step that up a notch
that's a
before four.
great. I love that.
Uh, um, I was like, man, I gotta hit this guy up because this is awesome. I love what you're doing. Especially with putting the doing something crazy to bring focus to something so
Yeah,
big, right?
yeah.
Um, I know you said you're not a social media guy, but your Instagram is pretty legit. I
Is it
enjoy
doing all
looking
right?
at it.
All right.
It
I
is. It
appreciate
is.
it. Like, man, please anybody, please make suggestions. Like, uh, I think I've been lucky so far too to have so many people offer resources. Um, so if anybody has stuff that they want to put, they want to know more about, let me know. Um, I'm trying to do right now. We're doing kind of a Draper focus, and then and between Draper and um, guys that have done work, or not guys, anybody that's done work in the suit. Although I hazard the Army captain that she's got the fastest record. I don't think she'd probably care if I said guys, right? Like I think most techs are like, shut up, just
Yeah.
don't even good enough,
Yeah.
good enough for me. Um, just talk about Draper and suit. People have suffered in the suit, right?
Yeah.
And kind of the why. I think though we're going to start moving into like I have a bunch of stuff on um, the suit coming about in Vietnam and
Okay.
like what the suit looked like what did the original suit look like, and what was it designed to do, and so I want to talk like the evolution of the bomb suit, um, and then maybe at some point I can start talking a little bit about like all the things EOD is on the hook for, but I think just the try to find interesting snippets of history. So generally, like explosions and suffering
Yeah.
pull people in. So if I can capture that, or just like anything wild, like what are people doing in it or have done in it? Like let's talk about that.
Yeah.
That might be what we aren't the first ones to suffer in that suit for some reason or do something. Somebody's done something crazy in that thing.
Yeah.
So I want to find those stories and
I like it. Um, if you want, I guess let people know like your Instagram and then how else they can get a hold of you. If you want them to get a hold of you in any other way, um, maybe not like direct phone number. That could be a little much, but
just put it on home address on the internet. It's
yeah.
fine.
And then how they can donate to the cause.
um, Everybody is very welcome. Let me pull it up. So we do have obviously the Instagram, and then um, so anybody is welcome to email me at bombsuitmarathon@gmail.com. Pretty straightforward and simple. Um, the Instagram is at bombsuit_marathon, and I can send this all to you as well.
Yeah, perfect.
Um, I'm fairly confident if you just put in bombsuit marathon in Instagram, it'll pop up. So if you don't do the underscore, I think it'll work. Um, runsignup.com /bombsuit marathon is how you donate. The donation page is up, and right now it's just it just kind of talks about my mission, but we're working to get it. We started really far out. May is a long way away, but I've been training. Uh, this isn't going to be an easy train, so I've been working now, and I didn't see any reason to not start working on it now. So the fundraising page is up. We're fleshing out the EOD Warrior Foundation page, which is connected. And that page won't be so much for donations as much as this is just who they are. OC Marathons is putting on a big spread of who they are. Like the entire month of September is going to be EOD Warrior Foundation centric. So what are they doing? Why are they doing it? And what is the inherent value to it? So I'm just super excited about it to see that come up. But if you do go to the runsignup.com /bombsuit marathon, you can donate there. Goes without saying, everything goes to them. We'll have merchandise up soon, and we're kind of working out how exactly to best put that out there. At a minimum, my Venmo will be on the website, but that, since EOD Warrior Foundation is a nonprofit, I want people to, if you donate, you should get at least the receipt, right? At a minimum. So we're working that piece out, but everything will go to support them. And then, of course, EODWarriorFoundation.org for anybody that wants to just read up on the organization itself. But honestly, people want to reach out via Instagram, my profile, and then the Bombsuit profiles there. Hit me up if you're interested.
Yeah, I'll make sure to put all that in the description, and then
Thanks,
I'll
brother.
probably throw a quick thing up like at the beginning and at the end with the Instagram and the email and the ways
Okay.
to donate. That way, anybody and hopefully everybody who's listening donates at
Yeah.
least something.
Yeah, I would. Every little bit. Um, we're gonna have. We got stickers now, which I'm just gonna just hand it out, right? We've got coins coming, so hopefully that's inspiring, and
Nice.
we're likely to do. And Orange County is just like we're running with this, so we're gonna do. Most likely, it won't be people buy the merchandise if they just do donation milestones. I'll just send them stuff.
Okay.
I don't really care about recouping money. I just want to support and do some good stuff. They've gone so far as if you want to run a marathon, you can run it for free if you fundraise for the EOD Warrior Foundation. You sign up and you sign up for your race. You pick them as your foundation, and then you fundraise for them. And then once you raise $500 or more, your race is refunded. So you run a marathon
That's
for free in
awesome.
Orange County. And like, how generous of them is that? How cool is that? If you wanted to run a marathon, you absolutely have time. So anybody that's got time between now and May and wants to run a marathon, like, if you need help training, I'll get you there. Like, we can chat. I'll help. I've been running my whole life. So just there's a lot of ways. Like, people can donate or they can fundraise on their own, which sometimes can be easier for me. Like,
Yeah.
my circle, over the years has donated, so many times. I've asked, like my family and friends, so many times for support. So it's like, you tap the well enough times, it gets tough. And I think that's another little piece of it is like, well, if I'm going to ask for money from people who I'm always asking for money from, I got to do something that kind of warrants it. Like,
Yeah.
this is different. This is okay. All right. Last time though,
Yeah.
so you got to one up it each time.
No, I like that. Yeah. Do you have anything that you want to like close out on, whether it's to the community, to anybody listening to anything?
No, I think I'm just grateful. A lot of the guys, everybody I've reached out to has been supportive, and and on the surface, it's like, I appreciate their support for this event. But on some days, like, I'm just really appreciative of their time for me. And then I think what ends up happening is I just feel a lot of gratitude for the community that I was a part of. And this might, one might say, like, this is my sort of attempt at staying a part of that community. And that's probably fair to some level. Like, I don't do contract work. I don't really have much to do with the EOD field now. Although, like, thankfully my job recognizes like some of that stuff, but like, just having been a part of that was pretty amazing. So it's not, it's like every day it's something I'm like, I got to be a part of that. Like how, like, incredible, like, how many words can I use, right? Like, I just feel a lot of gratitude for those opportunities, and for like the guys that like still that click follow, or like to still watch my video, still watch the stuff I put up, even if it's like a map of my run today. Like, I appreciate like the people that care.
I appreciate everything that you're doing.
And thanks for
Awesome.
having me. Like,
Absolutely, man.
dude,
Absolutely.
you took a lot of time out of your Sunday. I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, this has been great. Yeah, we'll keep in touch and
I'd love that.
maybe do a follow up when you get the record. We
Yeah.
could talk about how
Yeah.
much fun it was and how you didn't suffer
Yeah.
at all.
The training went so well, and I didn't even notice this week.
Thank you for listening to the Echo Oscar Delta podcast, where we talk to Navy EOD techs and hear the stories that they want to share.